students. That is just ew. All right. Anyway, let's continue our discussion. My dear Senator Cummings, can you see our live stream on the channel now? Please help me out here. All right, so we are going to discuss the Clinical Laboratory Act of 1966. Sir, bakit ganon? Mas nauna nating di-discuss yung 5527. 1996 to. Ganon talaga. Gusto ko. Bakit? Walang pakialamanan. All right? The Clinical Laboratory Act of 1966 is actually known as RA, or Republic Act Republic Act 4688. It is the second law that you need to remember. All right? But unlike the other one, I'm not going to discuss it in detail because I've recently found out that in the board exam, they're just going to ask the important things indicated in the act. Okay? All right? So medyo madali. There is still memory work, but it's easier for you guys as compared to RA 5527, which you need to memorize from 1 to 32. Okay? Ano nga ulit yan? Title, definition of terms, scope of the practice, o diba? Memorize ko pa yung first 10. Ano nga yan? Council of Medical Technology, functions of the Council of Medical Technology, mga ganun. Alright? So, hopefully you guys have some sort of mnemonic. I don't have a mnemonic for it because usually when I took the exam way back in 2011, you know what I did when I received the test paper? I immediately flipped it back. I wrote at the bottom 1 to 32 and I wrote everything before I started the exam so I can have a reference to come back to it. Cuz honestly, when I took the exam, I reviewed everything last minute. The day before, I read all the dates, the important people, what else did I remember? I tried to master the histopathology stuff that needs to be memorized because the last part of the exam is more on memory work. Okay? So, the only thing that I can help you out with is give you guys flashcards and sort of like give you an idea on what are the questions that are going to be given in the exam and what format they will come. All right? So what I did was I wrote everything. Section 1, title, blah 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 blah. 32. Date of the promulgation. Who's the president? I wrote everything at the back. It's if you looked at my exam, the small portion there where you're not supposed to write where you're supposed to leave it blank. I wrote a lot of stuff there, just for me to remember everything because I know I'm going to be stressed out because I wouldn't know some of the questions that are going to be asked of me. So I did everything I can to preserve the remaining amount of brain cells that I had before the exam. So yun yung technique ko. So it may not work. It may work for some of you. It may work. It may not work. But that was my technique. All right. Because everything here is memory work. So what is the date? RA for what was the date? Sorry, it's supposed to be what was the date? RA 4699 was promulgated to the Philippines. It's again in June, but the date is different. 1966, the 18th of June, 1966. Administrative Order 2007-0027 is what? It is actually an administrative order that was promulgated in August 22, 2007. It's quite a recent amendment of RA 4677. All right, so 4688. Sorry, 4688. An amendment. It's a revised rules and regulations governing the registration and licensing of clinical labs in the Philippines. So it's basically just an amendment. All right. So if it is asked in your exam, it's AO 2007-0027. Madali lang maalala. Siya lang yung associated na ganyan ang numbering system niya. O, diba? Similar to what you will remember in the blood bank. I know, sasakit ang ulo ninyo. Pero lagay lang ako ng lagay. Anyway, hindi naman ako ang magme-memorize niyan. Alright? So, it was promulgated. This one was promulgated. This amendment was promulgated in August 22, 2007. All right? Cool beans? So it's just revised rules and regulations. That's the name of the act. Now, what is the governing body that regulates all clinical laboratories in the Philippines? It is the BHFS. What does BHFS stand for? Hello? Somebody sent a message. Is there anything? Somebody sent a message. Ping! May ganun. Alright. Okay, so anyway, where was I? I thought somebody sent a message. I heard the word tung. I heard the sound tung. Alright, so BHFS stands for Bureau of Health Facilities and Services. They are the people who accredit labs, who give out licenses for operation or license to operate, or the LTO for laboratories in the Philippines. Okay, it's again indicated in RA 4688. All right, if you were so kindly to check it out. Now, the scope of services offered by a BHFS, according to the administrative order that we talked about earlier, is that it is all clinical laboratories. Okay, all clinical laboratories are capable of microscopy works, except all clinical laboratories in the Philippines, except for anything that is governed by the DOH that does the following: AFB screening, malarial smears, and STDs. All right, so they are capable. They govern, or they work with all services covered by the laboratory, except for laboratories that work with microscopy under the DOH, specifically AFB screening, malarial smears, and STD and cervical or Pap smears. All right, so the scope is this one. All right, so it's going to be asked in the board exam. Okay, it's going to be asked in the board exam. So the BHFS. There's a lot of acronyms that you need to memorize as well. Now, there are several classifications of laboratories in the Philippines. Okay, it's either ownership. It's based on the type of ownership, whether it is private or government based on function, clinical pathology or anatomical pathology. Usually, if it's a hospital-based or an institutional-based clinical laboratory, which means it's affiliated with a hospital, it's usually both. All right, most of the time, with the difference of either histopathology and blood banking going to be separated on another facility. All right, so function-based clinical pathology and anatomical pathology. What is the difference between clinical pathology and anatomical pathology? Review question for your introduction to medical technology. Need someone to answer for me. What is the difference between clinical pathology and anatomical pathology? Anybody can anybody answer? What about Rainiel Ursia? Hello? Rainiel Ursia. Ay, nagtampo sa akin, hindi na nagsasalita. Rainiel, my dear, where art thou? Hello? How about anybody else? Francis. Hala, walang nagsasalita. What's the difference? What about Marco, tuloy muntik ko na matawag si sir pala ninyo yan. Who wants to answer? What is the difference between clinical pathology and somebody raised their hand. Mayra Gagazo was the first person that I saw. Please unmute yourself and say the answer for me. State the answer. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So, for example, by order of function, the clinical pathology laboratory that you're working for is processing histopathology samples. without the knowledge of the government? Do you think do you think they can still, I'm still doing the job, right? I'm still doing the job as a medical technologist. I'm allowed to do the job by virtue, but will I be, what do you call this? Will I be implicated of a crime if I continued working and doing that thing, or doing anatomical pathology work in a clinical laboratory? Mayra. Uy, Mayra. Where are you? What's the answer? Okay, very good. So hindi ka maaaresto, hindi ka pwedeng kasuhan, or hindi ko pwedeng i-process. All right. So thank you so much. So that is the difference between RA 5527 and RA 4688. It does not mean that even though you are employed as a registered medical technologist at a clinical laboratory, means that you are entitled to process samples. Hindi ka pwedeng magmagaling. Alright? Because there is a governing body. There's a governing body that will prevent you from doing it. Okay? Why? Because they are the ones that prohibit they are the ones that that monitor, regulate, or whatever that is associated to the physical facility. All right? So you may be allowed to perform medical technology duties and responsibilities by law, but if your facility does not have the capacity or does not have the license to operate in terms of clinical pathology, in terms of anatomical pathology, then you are not allowed to do so as well. All right? Similar to me not being able to run patient samples at the back of my house or at my backyard, 'di ba? Hindi ka pwede, meron pa rin tayong batas na kailangang sundin. Alright? Hindi ka pwedeng basta na lang magtayo ng laboratory sa bakuran mo. Meron pa ring governing body. Yun nga si BHFS. Okay? Gets nyo po? Gets nyo po kung bakit kailangan nating pag-usapan to? Kasi lalabas yan sa exam ninyo. Gagawa ako ng mga kaso. Titingnan natin kung talagang naintindihan nyo siya. Alright? Now, institutional character. Based on institutional character, it could be a freestanding laboratory. It could be an institutional-based laboratory. So, your school is actually a institutional-based. Your school is affiliated with Capital Medical Colleges, Capital Medical Center, and Capital Medical Center is affiliated with a laboratory, right? So it's an institution-based laboratory, similar to University of Santo Tomas Clinical Laboratory and Molecular Laboratory, similar to St. Luke's Clinical Laboratory and research facilities, blah blah blah. Those are institutional-based. Okay, Quezon City General or is it Memorial now? I'm not sure. Can somebody correct me in the chat? Is it Quezon City Memorial Hospital now, or it's still Quezon City General Hospital? I'm not sure because the last time I went, they were changing the names of that hospital. I used to live behind that hospital. Is it QCGH pa din po? QCGH pa rin po. Okay. So, thank you. Kasi parang may nakita ako memorial na may nakita kasi akong parang nililipat sila doon. May mga students din kasi ako dati na mga doktor na ngayon doon nagre-residency program. So, nakalagay kasi sa ID nila QCMH. So, baka iba yung nasa isip ko na hindi na yung QCGH na nandyan sa malapit sa Muñoz. Alright? So, baka iba yung nakita ko na Alright, so anyway, thank you for clarifying that one. We're going to move on with the service capability. The service capability is going to be differentiated further into a general clinical laboratory or a specialized laboratory. General clinical laboratories are divided into 4 categories. primary, secondary, and tertiary, and limited service capability laboratories. All right? We're going to explain those things later on. All right? So, I've discussed to you the types of laboratory under 468 RA 4688. It's based on ownership, function, institutional characters, and service capability. It is well defined in that particular law. All right? It's a Republic Act. Therefore, it passed to Senate. It was passed through the Congress, and then it went through different meetings or debates. They debated on it 3 times in the Congress. Then it was debated again on the Senate 3 times before being submitted to the president. Whether the president vetoed it, we do not know, because there is no it's not really asked in your board exam, so don't worry about it. Okay. I didn't research it for you thoroughly, because I'm usually focusing on the questions that are going to be asked in your board exams. Okay? Cool? Can we move on? Hello? Can we move on? Hala, kumain lang sila, sir. Hala, kanina active na active sila. Parang gusto kong magbigay ulit ng prizes. No? Para magising sila. Parang gusto kong magpadala ulit ng pera sa Pilipinas. Sino kaya ang magigising? Alright, mamaya na. Gusto ko yung mga mahihirap na questions. Alright, what are the scope of services? What is the scope of services pala? Mali, subject-verb agreement tayo niyan. May problema tayo, kakahiya. What is the scope of services of a primary laboratory? What is the scope of services provided by a primary laboratory? So, it's routine hematology. Alright? May narinig na naman akong nakaka-distract talaga yung mga nasa chat box na yan. Ha? UA. Ay, ayun na, nagsilabasan na sila. Alright, saka sila naglabasan. Saka naging active, Sir Marco. Basta talaga pag may mga financial rewards, biglang nagiging active. Nakakainis kayo, ha? Nakakainis kayo. Oo. Well, I would have to confer to you first before we say things like last time, kasi para nagkaroon kayo ng kaguluhan ata because of the plus na mga yan eh. So, this time I would be much more stringent and we will put everything in recording. All right? Okay. So, these are the services of a primary laboratory that they provide. Look at it carefully. Clinical laboratory is clinical chemistry is not included, and microbiology is not included, as well as histopathology. Blood typing is only available in a hospital-based laboratory. All right? So routine hematology, urinalysis and fecalysis, and qualitative platelet counts. So what do you mean by qualitative platelet counts? You could say it is adequate. You could say many, and you could say few. All right? Or you could flag it as a report. You could report it. So how do we report qualitative platelet counts? Smears. All right? We can do smears. Okay? So right now, kung sinong gusto sa inyong gumawa ng laboratory, the easiest way to open a laboratory is to have these following tests. Actually, mayroon akong friend na nag-o-offer lang sila before ng urinalysis at fecalysis at saka ng routine hematology results. And you know what? After 5 years rather, they expanded from a primary laboratory. Now they are affiliated with a hospital. And now they are now a secondary laboratory. All right? So, very good yon. Okay? So, imaginein mo, microscope lang at saka centrifuge, tsaka papel, pwede ka nang magkumita. Imaginein mo, ayan urinalysis at fecalysis. Tapos, ikaw pa ang pwedeng mag-determine ng prices mo. Lalo na kung nasa may isang malayong lugar ka. Business ideas for you guys. Right? It's a business idea for you guys. Right? Routine hematology, This one for me is difficult because if you're going to stand, if you want to be a laboratory who's tight on a budget, you need to have at least 100,000 pesos to buy reagents for a machine that is tie up. So what do you mean by tie up? You can get a machine, but you wouldn't be able to own it for your laboratory, but you would only pay for the reagents. So that's what you call a tie up. All right? So medyo mahirap kung gusto mong routine hematology gagawa ka rin. Kasi you need to find somebody who will make a contract with you and makikipag-tie up. And usually it will start with a proposal. Alright? So may proposal yan, may bidding na nangyayari dyan. What do we mean by bidding? Pag-uusapan ninyo ni company, for example, si Abbott or sino ba yung mga si Beckman Coulter. Dyan sa Philippines ata ang provider natin dyan is BioMedServe or something like that, the largest company there that provides machines for laboratory for analytical measurements of hematology muna. For example lang. All right? So usually kung hindi maganda ang proposal mo, your business proposal with them, they would not allow a tie-up with you because you need to provide how many samples you can receive in a monthly or weekly basis. You have to support it. You have to support it with data based on your census. Kaya kailangan pumapasok din dito yung biostatistics understanding ninyo. Kaya nga may mga subject tayo na mga tinuturo sa college na hindi natin usually pinapansin kasi focus tayo sa HEMA. But in truth, when you go into the actual practice, babalikan kayo ng biostatistics a lot of the times. All right? A lot of times people would disregard it during their college days, but when they go and practice the profession, they will literally dread statistics. All right? So especially me, I work as a quality control, as a quality management facilitator in my laboratory. Apart from my work as a laboratory technologist there. All right. So hematology, that you need to make a proposal. They would need to approve it whether or not you met the criteria, and then may signing doon. How much reagents will they supply to you? So doon tayo magkakanda loko-loko. Kaya medyo mahirap para sa akin. Urinalysis madali lang. Dip, read, resist. Diba? Look at the microscope, and then that's it. Alright? So for hematology, I cannot for the life of me answer this one for you. If Mera Gagazo wants to open the Gagazo clinics and laboratory services. O di ba? Meron na tayong senator, meron na din tayong ano nga trabaho ni Francis in the near future? Attorney, and then we have a future Archon, and then Mayra Gagazo is the proprietor of Gagazo Clinics and Laboratory Services. Di ba bongga? All right? Okay, so next, what is the scope of a secondary laboratory? Ang haba ng pinag-usapan natin sa primary laboratory. Secondary laboratory is the one that is capable of doing routine chemistry. Routine chemistry, guys. Routine chemistry. So it includes lipid profile tests, including cholesterol and your uric acid and urea tests, and of course glucose. All right. Gram stain can be done in this hospital, but still with limitations. Okay, and KOH preps, and then cross-matching can be done. Cross-matching if it's hospital affiliated. I forgot to mention that one. Please write it on your notes. Okay, quantitative platelet analysis is now done here. Why? Because according to BHFS, this is a laboratory that must provide daily quality control data. Alright? So, hindi sila pwedeng basta-basta lang. Hindi ka pwedeng basta-basta merong microscope tapos pwede na, gusto ko na mag-run. Because according to RA 5527, I am allowed to run and do stuff like this. Blah, yada, keme root. No. You are still, under the law, required to follow the structural or the physical or the infrastructural capabilities of your place of employment. So anything that a primary lab can do, plus the addition of quantitative counts, quantitative platelet counts, cross-matching, gram stain, KOH, and routine chemistry, including tests like glucose, cholesterol, uric acid, and urea. All right, cool beans. Now let's go on with tertiary laboratory. So anything a secondary laboratory can do, plus special chemistry, plus special hematology testing, including coagulation studies. All right, coagulation studies, immunology and serology, and culture and sensitivity this time. Why? Because one of the requirements is a biosafety cabinet and negative pressure. All right. So what do you mean, guys? What do you mean by negative pressure? Does anybody know what negative pressure mean? Pwedeng Tagalog. Don't worry. You can, parang Dragons Den po na show. Yes, that is correct. Yes, Joanna Baltar, that is correct. Now, what does negative pressure mean? Does anybody know what negative pressure means? Anybody? You can search Google. You can say it in Tagalog if you're shy in answering questions. I'm delivering the lecture in Taglish because you're going to get the exam in English, and therefore the mode of instruction is going to be in English. So I'm trying my best to at least bridge the gap for you guys. All right, Tagalog and English. All right, so may HEPA filter, yeah, negative pressure. The fact that you're using a negative pressure containment system means that you're using a HEPA filter. Yeah, every negative pressure system has one. Adrian raised his hand. What is a negative pressure? Basically, like, describe to me. Just describe it to me. You don't need to, sir, yung isolation area sa ward po. O ano ngayon? Sa isolation ward lang naman pala. Bakit? Sa QCG? O, sige, explain. Explain yourself. Hoy, edi ibig sabihin na laso na sa carbon dioxide poisoning ang pasyente. Ano? Hala, Sir Marco, hindi daw. Hala, sir. Oh, remember, CO2. Nakakaloka ka, Adrian. Hindi na nakahiga yung mga tao. Ayan, somebody answered correctly. Joanna Baltar, I don't want to read your answer. Please say it to me. Charisse also, I want, naloka ako sa iyo, Adrian. Ano, hindi mo na pinahiga ang mga pasyente mo. Ipapasara ko yung laboratory mo. Ipapasara ko yung laboratory mo, Sir, Mr. Cummings. Senator Cummings. All right. Charisse, Joanna, anybody from you guys, anyone here, explain to me what negative pressure is. Huh? Ah, wonderful. Yes. What about... Yes. Yes, girl. Yes. I love it. Yes. What about Charisse? Charisse has something to say. Taglish pa sagot niya. O, babasahin ko yung sagot mo. Bahala ka. Sorry? Again? Sorry? I didn't quite hear that. Am I lagging or what? Hoy. Hoy. Anong kaguluhan yan? Ang ganda-ganda pa naman ng sinulat mo. Alright, so let's talk about it like this. Ventilation type system po siya where mas madami po yung exhaust na air. Kinda, your answer is a little bit close, but this is how negative pressure happens. So negative pressure basically is it's like a vacuum where you said there's an extra exhaust there. But additionally, the main purpose of negative pressure is to keep on sucking out the air in the system. It means for the purpose of decreasing the risk of contamination or inhalation of certain aerosols. Is it similar to fume hoods? Yes. That is the reason why. One of the reasons why I asked you this is because look at the tests, culture and sensitivity, right? It does culture and a tertiary laboratory must be able to have culture is allowed to do culture and sensitivity. Okay? Why? Because the BHFS will look at your infrastructure. Do you have a fume hood? Is your microbiology department equipped with negative pressures? With negative pressure, what is the level of biosafety that you're capable of? That the maximum level of biosafety in your microbiology department has, right? Because if you remember, I was the one who taught them. Is this the same class that I taught bacteriology? Kayo ba yon? Okay, good. So if you remember, I'm not sure if most of you did. I talked about infection control and everything else, right? There's a lot of contaminants there. Francisella tularensis is one of them, right? Francisella tularensis is a known work-related hazard, as well as Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and you have to consider that everything that comes into the laboratory is potentially infectious. Hence the term in infection control. If we are talking about infection control standards, we use what we call the standard precaution or the universal precaution. So the BHFS will not allow you to operate your laboratory without a biosafety cabinet and negative pressure in your lab. If you were able to operate or secure an LTO to be a tertiary laboratory, there is something fishy there. All right? Because I researched it. You wouldn't also be allowed to secure a PhilHealth accreditation if you are a tertiary laboratory if you consider yourself a tertiary laboratory without a fume hood, as well as a biosafety cabinet, as well as a negative pressure area. So ni-research ko siya actually for you guys. If you look at PhilHealth accreditation standards, JCI standards, what else? JCI standards, Sibahi is for Saudi Arabia. Sorry. What else is the other one? CAP accreditation, College of American Pathology standards. They usually will not allow you or will not accredit you if you are a laboratory that operates with microbiology services without the facility requirements. Usually they would have a facility inspection conducted by the safety department, by your safety department, as well by your hospital's facility safety department, as well as an external safety department. All right? So may mga bibisita, syempre. Yun nga yung pag nag-intern na kayo, makikita nyo yung mga staff ninyo, tinitingnan lahat ng mga reagents nyo, expired na ba to, ganyan. Yun yung magkakagulo-gulo, 'di ba? Sir Marco, meron ka bang experience na ganon? Nag-i-intern ka, yung mga staff ninyo pakikialaman niyo, "Oy, okay ba yan yung blood typing sira natin? Expired ba yan or anything?" Ganon. Alright? Oo, yes. So, ganon. Alright? So, based on my practice, or if I may be so bold to say this statement, in my experience, it is a headache for actual practicing laboratory staff to have an accreditation process, or what they call it, accreditation survey. Pag narinig nyo na yung word na survey, lahat na ng mga tao usually on a weekly basis sa lab, nagmi-meeting yan. O ano ng performance ninyo? Pasok ba ang mga quality control? Nag-monitor ba kayo ng daily? Oo, nagmo-monitor ba kayo ng daily? Yes, ganon. Alright? So, I don't know kung how many years ang nagtrabaho si Sir Marco, pero ako kasi 8 years ako nagtrabaho. And it has always been my headache, especially now na ang additional workload ko is quality facility management na. Kaya usually quality management pala, sorry. Usually lahat 'yan pinakikialaman ko. Bakit hindi pasok controls ninyo? Bakit hindi kayo gumawa ng corrective action? Lagi ako nang-aaway ng ganyan. Nang wawarla talaga ako ng mga ano, lalo na kapag hindi nakakaintindi ng Ingles. Alright? So ganon. Doon ako talaga nang wawarla. Alright? Laging mataas ang BP ko noon. But anyway, let's move on, guys, to the next one. Examples of laboratory in the Philippines with service capabilities. So what are the service capabilities? So dialysis centers are actually equipped with laboratory equipment, and social hygiene laboratory clinics. If you're familiar with the HIV screening laboratories in the Philippines, I'm not sure if it's still active. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's One Love, the One Love community outreach program for the prevention and the detection of possible HIV infections. They are equipped with certain laboratory equipments and reagents and chemicals, as well as kits to screen for sexually transmitted disorders, as well as specifically for HIV. Dialysis centers, if you're familiar with the nephro-kidney department there in Muñoz, near beside the, I'm not sure if it's still open, if beside Iglesia ni Cristo. O di ba, memorize ko pa ang Muñoz. Oh my God, nami-miss ko na talaga ang Pilipinas. You will see Nephro Lab there. It is a dialysis center that is affiliated with the PhilHealth. You can go and get they do laboratory tests, usually for creatinine. Limited lang ang testing nila, specific only for patients who undergo dialysis, because they need to still follow the standards. They must be because the location is far away from a healthcare facility that is synonymous to a hospital. The laboratory equipment there could provide tests such as creatinine, for creatinine, special chemistries like creatinine. I don't know if they do GFR, as well as what else? 24-hour urine collection, and then CBC also, just to monitor the hemoglobin levels of the patients if they require blood transfusion. All right, if they may require immediate blood transfusion. But usually these are laboratories or healthcare facilities that is located 100 meters or more, 100 meters or less, near an actual hospital. That's the reason why it's located. The location is prime, because JP Shawson Hospital and Quezon City Memorial Medical Hospital / QCGH is located there, and I think ACE is also ACE hospitals are located nearby. So kaya maganda yung prime location, and they are allowed to operate. All right? Cool? Understand? Now, specialized laboratories, this is now the common trend in the Philippines, especially now during the pandemic. We have molecular laboratories right now. All right? Mabilis mag-open ng molecular laboratories ngayon sa Pilipinas. So kung may pera kayo, maybe around 100,000, a million, you can actually open a molecular laboratory right now, a molecular biology laboratory right now. Assisted reproductive technology laboratories, ito yung mga nagpo-perform ng in vitro fertilization. And I don't think in the Philippines, because we are a Catholic-based, majority of Filipinos are Catholics. Assisted reproductive technology labs are popular. All right? So in the United States, they have a lot of those things, especially kung if you want to practice cytogenetics. Actually, based on American standards, they have a specified cytogenetics profession. So cytotechnologist, we call them a cytotechnologist or cytogenetic technologist. All right? So if you're aiming to go abroad, you need to be well versed in molecular biology and cytogenetics. Actually, both of these things are intertwined. Actually, some molecular labs do molecular gene testing. Just for your information, okay? What else is a reproductive lab, assisted reproductive technology capable of doing? The storage of eggs from female donors, and the storage of semen, of washed semen. In my previous work, we have a built-in assisted reproductive technology laboratory there. The duty is usually on call, because not many people get avail these services. Usually once a year or twice a year lang ginagamit yung cytogenetics lab doon. And usually the laboratory staff is limited to only working at the level of washing the semen sample of the patient, and then storing the sample in dry ice. That's the limitations of a person who will work in the cytogenetics lab. Okay? All right. Now, what do we mean by stat? It means statim. It means immediately, within an hour. It is again indicated in the Clinical Laboratory Act of 1966. You need to remember that. It is well defined there, right? Within 1 hour. So based on our laws, right? The general requirements for laboratories. Now, this is something that you need to remember, all right? It needs to have a license to operate, an LTO from BHFS. If it's a teaching laboratory, it is exempted, but it must register. It is exempted from what? It's exempted from having a license to operate one. Why? It's a teaching laboratory or a research laboratory. It still has to be registered, but their job is not mainly focused on handling clinical samples for the diagnosis and treatment of patients. They're more or less focused on experiments and research and development studies. So the license to operate is not really that stringent. The requirements to get a license to operate from the BHFS is not really that stringent. It's not really strict. They just need to register. For specialized laboratories, they need to register and must acquire an LTO as well. All right. For physician office laboratories, they must secure a license if they issue official receipts and cater to other patients. All right. And perform tests other than monitoring. So, for example, in physician's laboratory or in physician's office laboratories, they usually have a POCT analyzer there for hemoglobin A1C. All right. So for HbA1c, sorry, somebody keeps texting me. Can you guys hear my gosh, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yan, naririnig niyo yan? Alright, so I need to control that. Di ba, Adrian, di ba Senator Cummings, masyadong sensitive yung mic? Maski yata utot ko maririnig dito, my goodness. Secret. Alright. Okay, so hopefully din na ninyo naririnig. Binawasan ko na yung sensitivity and everything. Hopefully. If they issue an official receipt for monitoring, what else? So POCT naman tayo. Diagnostic tests that are done in the bedside, they must request and must be supervised by licensed laboratory. So for POCT, what do you mean by POCT? Anybody here knows? All right, wonderful. So I don't need to ask. Yan ang gusto ko. Hindi na namumroblema hindi na ako namumroblemang maghanap ng sasagot. I love it. All right, thank you so much, Adrian, for answering that question. All right, so yeah. So point of care testing, if it's bedside testing, it has to be supervised and managed by a laboratory, by a licensed laboratory. So they need not to be registered, but they must be supervised and managed by a licensed laboratory. So may quality control pa rin nangyayari. Alright, so hindi tayo ganun hindi pwedeng basta si doktor ganito ang may-ari niyan, hindi niyo pwedeng awayin 'yun. Hindi. According to the law, you have to either be supervised or you have to be supervised and managed by a specific laboratory. You have to be either affiliated or at least have doctors there who or pathologists there who monitor the daily activities of your laboratory if you do POCT testings. Okay, POCT testing. All right. Next thing that we're going to discuss is the specific requirements for special laboratories. Medyo marami siya. All right. Now, the specific requirements for a laboratory to function is the following: a human resource department, the head of pathology. You need to have a head. You need to have a pathologist. The human resource, by the way, is the head. You need to have human resource, of course, the head and a staff, of course, RMTs. Under an RMT, pwede mag-hire ng how many MLTs? Anybody? Unmute yourself. 2. Very good. All right. The types of equipment. You need to have equipment specific for the type of laboratory that you're going to have. You must have ample supplies also. When you're going to get accredited, they are going to check your monthly supplies. That's why an accreditation program can range from 6 months to a year, because they want to see your baseline data, or from the moment you opened your laboratory to at least a 6-month data. If they see any discrepancies in your inventory, then that means that your lab will probably get will not get a license, or will not be able to renew their license to operate. That there should be a physical plan. These are things that you need to remember. The physical plan should be well lit. All right? Hindi well lit na nagsabi lang ako ng politically incorrect statement, magagalit na kayo. Hindi 'yon yung lit na sinasabi ko, baka mamaya lit kayo diyan. May nasabi lang ako, hindi, transphobe si sir. Hindi ganon lit. Yung as in literal na ilaw. All right? Should be well ventilated as well. Yun nga yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. There should be exhaust fans for your laboratory to perform, for the reagents not to suffocate your staff. Okay? Wag niyong gayahin yung floor plan na gusto ni Senator Cummings for Adrian Cummings General Hospital, somewhere where he lives. Okay? Huwag niyong gagayahin yun na yung hindi lumalabas yung hangin. Sasabog yung mga tao. Alright? Wag niyong gagayahin yon. And there has to be an ample supply of water. Why? Because water will be one way for you to dilute certain reagents and waste products that could just be thrown in the sink. So what is an example of waste product that can be of a waste product that can be thrown into the sink or can be discarded in the sink? Urine, right? You just need to run water on it. That's why you need an ample supply of water. Hindi siya pwede yung paputol-putol, guys. All right? If your laboratory is far away from water sources, they are going to look for water storage facility, of the capacity of the laboratory to have a water storage facility to supply the laboratory infrastructure. Okay? So hindi ka basta-basta mag-o-open ng laboratory, Adrian, ha. Hindi din pwede yung pakana mo na hindi lumalabas yung hangin pag negative pressure, ha? Sasabog tayo. Hindi pwede 'yon. Alright? So dapat tandaan mo na ngayon kapag ka magpapatayo ka ng laboratory, you need to remember these things. Especially you, the future CEO of Gagaso Laboratory Services, yung magiging kalaban ng high precision laboratories in the future, in 2025. Alright? Now, Mayra, since we're talking about you, by the way, you need to choose what type of laboratory you're going to have. You have 3 choices. You have primary, secondary, and tertiary laboratory, and it has a floor plan. The floor plan for the minimum square area of workspace for your laboratory. If it's a primary, it's 10. If it's secondary, it's 20. If it's a tertiary laboratory, it's 60 square meters. All right. So those are the area, the workspace area for your laboratory. Okay. And there should be administrative policies. The policies should be official, and it should be documented, and it should be updated on a yearly basis, or certain things, like for example hiring process. What is the requirements for the pay? What is the requirement? What is the requirements for getting a new machine? Those should be indicated in the administrative policies. For technical procedures, these are your laboratory SOPs. I don't know if they call it as SOPs in the Philippines, but in Saudi Arabia they call it as SPG, SPG is standard procedural guidelines, SPGs. All right. There in the Philippines, I remember it's an SOP, standard operating procedures. It's usually in a small folder in the laboratory, and not many people notice it, but it's included as part of the technical procedures. You should also have quality assurance and quality control. In the Philippines, we have internal and external quality control. If we say something is internal, what is the difference? Clinical chemistry review. What is the difference between internal and external clinical quality control? Anybody? Hala. Anybody? Internal and external. You can answer in Tagalog if you want. Because this is medtech laws naman. Tagalog naman tayo. Don't be shy. Anybody? Alright, let's ask Joanna Baltar na lang. Ako na lang tatawag. Joanna Baltar, yun rin po ang sabi mo. Alright, what's the difference between internal and external quality control? What about external? Okay. You're partly correct based on schedule, but there are some lab tests that can be tested externally with external quality control on a daily basis. So you're partly correct, but some tests, specifically analytes related to POCT programs, they have daily external or weekly external quality control procedures. External quality control procedures. So who else have an idea what's the difference between internal and external quality control? Don't be shy. I don't bite. What about Deandra Postigo? Deandra, are you listening in on us? Do you have any idea what it is? Namimiss ko na si Francis Alipio. Francis, can you help us out? What's the difference between an external quality control program versus Somebody said something. Okay po, thank you. You're partly correct, Joanna. Don't worry. I accept some of the statements that you've said. Adrian, sige. Sige, go. Ayun. Very good. Okay, thank you. Ano yung internal? Ano pinagkaiba ng sa internal? Ano, sir? Ano, sir? Oo, hindi pwede yon. That is considered as plagiarism. Guys, you have research. That is plagiarism. That is avoided. That is a big no-no in your research. You know that I've heard several people get arrested for plagiarism. Okay? And one of the reasons why a certain review center, not gonna say the name, is not working properly anymore, is not working harmoniously anymore, is because of plagiarism as well. allegations of plagiarism because of allegations of a certain review center for medtechs. So we're not going to say the names. We're not going to say the names. Oo. I'm practicing my freedom of speech, but I do not want to be labeled as I do not want to use my, because I'm teaching law. I'm teaching medtech laws here, which can also branch out to certain aspects of law. I do not want to be implicated for the crime of libel, 'di ba? So that's why we're not going to say them. We're not going to state the names rather. Alright, so wait lang daw. Ang tagal naman naming mag-antay. Ayoko nga na nag-chat-chat. Si Charis talaga. Charis, sasakalin na kita, Charis, ha? Si Charis muna, Adrian. Huwag ka magulo. Si Charis muna. Alright. Charis, sige, go. Uh-huh. Very good. That is partly correct, but I will accept your answer. About 80% of your answer is acceptable. All right, so she is correct. But I'm looking for a specific keyword, and she missed the keyword third party. There's a third party that will monitor your performance. So I'll give you an example of the difference between internal and external quality control. So internal quality control is, as Charisse said, is done inside the laboratory or inside your laboratory. This may come in as reagents that you receive as part of your tie-up procedure, as part of your tie-up contract with a certain manufacturer of a certain machine or a reagent that you're using. That is considered as external quality control. In hematology, you will receive it in packets, especially if you're running machines from Beckman Coulter, Sysmex, and Abbott. They will send you a box full of level 1, 2, and 3 that you would use as your daily controls. Okay. Now, the opposite of that one is an external quality control procedure. Now, a third party, meaning an external party that may not be affiliated with the lab or the Philippine government, can send a sample to your laboratory. It is unknown yet. It is unknown. All right, the analytes, or for example, if you receive it a blood bank quality control or a microbiology quality control, it's unknown. We don't know what it is yet. Now, they will send it to several facilities around the Philippines or even sometimes around the world. All right. In my case, we have a third party here. We have RICAS in the current hospital that I'm working with. They send us samples coming from Italy, and they would not tell us anything yet until everybody from the whole world is finished. There is a deadline. You're going to submit the results online, enter the results online. And then, after several weeks of the deadline, you will receive your results, whether or not your results are congruent with the rest of the world. All right? Using a specific methodology, machine, and what else? Machine and technical staff usage. So that is the difference between internal and external quality control. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's from a reference laboratory. No, that is considered as proficiency testing. Proficiency testing is analyzing whether your staff is competent enough to perform a particular task or a particular procedure in the lab. All right? So proficiency test, that is different, and that is advanced. That is actually taken as a master course for medtechs. But just for you guys to differentiate, there is a third party that will give you control samples that has unknown analytical composition that you must complete with a specific deadline, and anyone from your specific nation or from the national level or from the international level will need to perform, and they will see that you will see a statistical analysis of everybody else's job. It's a comparative study from different hospitals and different laboratories. Okay, so what is the purpose of each of the following? Basically what Charis said, gamit po for accuracy and precision. But if you look closely if you look closely, accuracy and precision can also be tested with what we call method validation studies, which is something that you should not yet study because you are still at the bachelor's level. Pang masters na siya, pang mga tirada na ng mga masters yan, okay? Mga pang Sir Marco na yan at saka okay? Nag-aral, may ganun ba kayo na mga subjects, Sir Marco? Yung related sa method validation studies, mga ganon. Oo, usually siya, quality what do you call this? Laboratory management and quality assurance. Parang yun yung nakita ko sa ano. Oo. Ah. Yeah, because there's only a few hospitals in the Philippines that is CAP accredited, right? Usually it's CAP accreditation that requires and JCI accreditation that requires these method validation studies. And you will find that out when you come to work in the laboratory. It's interesting actually. Akala ninyo run ng sample, ganyan lang tayo ng ganyan ng sample, no? Ganon. Alright? Lucky tayo kasi sa Philippines. Mm, we don't have NECWAS. We apply for a third. Yeah. Um, Ganito kasi sila, sir, sa amin. Um, yung provider namin is from Italy always kasi alam mo naman, hindi sa nagsi-flex sa mayaman kasi na bansa yung Saudi Arabia. Wala silang pakialam dyan sa mga nekwas na yan. International lagi yung ano nila. International, hindi sa nagyayabang. Ang yabang nga nila nung nila sa akin yon nung diniscuss nila sa akin yung sabi kong over naman to, but parang ang hambog. Pero nung kinwento nila sa akin, international talaga sila lagi. Usually it's in the States, if it's College of American Pathologists who will be providing the samples to us. It will come in a vial for parasitology. It will come in a vial similar to what you guys will what we receive in the Philippines there from RITM ata, sir. Ganon. Yeah. Or if it's from maghahanap ka rin lang ng parasite. Pero ang pinagkaiba doon sa amin, may measurements. At saka i-indicate mo kung anong ano ang method na ginamit mo. So for example, nag-measure ka nagbigay ka ng quantitative analysis ng parasites mo sa stool. Pag slide methodology ang ginamit mo, dapat ilalagay mo doon. May box na lalabas doon sa online tab na 1:2 ba ang gagamitin mo or yung parts per million or OVA per preparation, mga ganon. So, very standardized siya based on the methodologies that you're using. So, I think if I don't want to sound arrogant, but that is much more preferable than what I was used to in the Philippines, because in the Philippines tingnan mo positive, pasa. Ganun lang siya. As opposed to there, they will send back the result. They will send back your result. They would not give you the result of the whole. They will not give you the result that is acceptable, but they will send it back, saying that there is a discrepancy in your result amongst the other participants. Please redo the test. This is another sample, or open your other sample. For example, in microbiology, they will send us 2 swabs. Use the first one for your initial testing, and if it's not correct or if it's not acceptable, you will open the second swab for your corrective actions. Everything else is also documented. All right? So, much siya. Oo. Important din siya. Important talaga siya, sir. Pag nagtrabaho na sila. Mm. Ay, maski clinic ba? Akala ko hospital-based laboratories lang. Maski pala clinics. Ah, okay, okay, okay. Thank you for informing that about that one. Akala ko kasi yung pinapansin lang ni RITM yung mga hospital-based labs lang. So, mm, okay. And then you have to pay also, right? No. Oo. Tapos may procedure doon, this should be opened within a couple of hours upon receipt. Mga ganun. Nakakabwisit, di ba? Oo. So, yon. So, guys, I'm terribly sorry if we diverted the discussion, but hopefully, you guys have learned something from that one. And it has inspired you to study more because our profession is not just running samples in a machine or looking at microorganisms on a plate. It's there's a plethora of things that you can do in terms of clinical laboratory science. All right? So hindi ka lang basta medtech. You are a documenter, you are a quality control, you are doing quality control, you are a microbiologist, a blood bankist, mga ganon. So I hope it is inspiring for you guys and it makes you to crave more knowledge and be excited to pass your exams. All right? So we're going to go on to our next. Thank you for that commercial, Sir Marco. And it was a lovely discussion between the both of us. We rarely have a long discussion like this. Okay. Now, quality assurance is different. It's much more holistic than quality control. Okay. Because in quality control, it just focuses, as I mentioned before, it just focuses on the analytical phase of of procedural analysis done in the laboratory. As opposed to quality assurance, it focuses on everything else. All right. Now, quality assurance can be pre-analytic, the way you collect the samples, the way you prepare the patients, and everything before it reaches the centrifuge, and you send the sample, you send the patient's serum to an analyzer. That is pre-analytic. Post-analytic is about result reporting, whether it's critical or it's a critical result or it's a panic result. These are that are related to post analytics. Just so you guys get a review of your of your introduction to clinical chemistry. It's usually discussed in the and I don't want to steal your clinical chemistry lecturers thunder. All right? Now, let's move on to the next thing. What are the conditions to operate a mobile laboratory? As I mentioned before, it needs to be near 100 meters or kilometers, it needs to be within 100 kilometers away from the main laboratory. You are not going to just say, I am Senator Cummings. I have a bus. All right? I need a bus because I want to help out Filipinos in diagnosing their diabetes because I am also a person with diabetes, with type 2 diabetes. So, okay. So, sige, gumawa siya ng anong color ang favorite ni Adrian? Let's say, we want to have, ayoko ng orange, very, siya to? Ha? Hi, ayoko ng ganyan. Ayoko nang magkaroon tayo ng ayoko ng ganyan. Hindi pwede. Wala tayong wala mo. Layuan natin yung mga colors na very very popular nowadays. Layuan muna natin yung green, red, and pink. Anong colors, sir? Chartreuse. Oh, I love it. And the other one is ayoko ng fuchsia kasi medyo related to dun sa may I want this discussion to be neutral. I want this to be politically neutral because I am a person who respects everybody's opinion but would consider himself as a person who does not vote because I want to maintain political neutrality, and that is my personal preference, and you cannot for the life of me allow me to vote, force me to vote. Okay? So I want political neutrality here, and I just want to be an arbiter for people who wants to talk about their political views. I will listen and I will post a counter argument if their arguments are fallacious, right? So let's move on. So they can collect samples only. A mobile laboratory can usually just collect a sample. They are not allowed to release results. Unfortunately, there are some political parties there, here and there, that provides free medical, quote unquote, free medical consultation and medical tests that can be received within 15 minutes. That is something that you should avoid. It's against RA 4688 to do those testing, to do those types of testing. Okay? So there is a political party there. I'm not going to mention the names, but it is against RA 4688 to do to do tests on site and release the results on site. The job of a mobile laboratory is only to collect the samples according to our laws in the Philippines. But yet, there are still some mobile laboratories there that perform the tests, especially COVID antigen testing. But I suppose, I'm not well versed in the current state of our laboratory, but I suppose President Duterte released a presidential decree allowing the testing for that. I think IATF was given the powers to perform to healthcare professionals on site to do those tests because of the pandemic. But if it was another time, if it was another time that is considered pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, it is against the law. Okay. Right. So what are the contents of an LTO, or a license to operate of a specific laboratory? It's the license to operate. You need to have a license number. It is clearly stated there. It's actually the largest. It's actually the one with the largest font. Validity of the license. It has to be the name of it. It has to indicate the name of the lab, the owner of the lab, the pathologist, hence the head, the location of the laboratory, and the service capability. Whether it's a primary lab, a secondary lab, tertiary lab, or a specialized laboratory like a molecular lab or anything else in between. Okay? So, this could be a question for you. This could be a question to your in your exam. So please remember this. I will present a case, indicate certain details. Which of the following is missing? Diba? Yun yung mga yun yung mga question ko sa inyo. Under RA 4688, which of the following is violated? It has been violated by this clinical laboratory. Ganon na mga questionan. All right? Or if you were one of the board members to examine a specific case of falsification of documents, which of the following data should you look for when inspecting the laboratory's license to operate? Yun yung mga datingan ng questions ko, guys. I want you guys to think like a board member and think like an attorney. All right? I know it's asking too much, but if you are able to survive my test, I am 95% sure that you will pass the exam pertaining to questions related to medtech laws. Okay? Now, conditions in renewing an LTO are the following. A non-hospital based of the laboratory can open the lab, can renew their lab, can renew their labs what they call this, a lab's LTO during the months of October and November only, if it's a non-hospital based. If it's a hospital based laboratory, it will have the time to operate the date of renewal, and it should not be later than 5 days after expiration. All right? It should not be later than 5 days. So again, this if there's an underline, most probably I will ask that question. All right? Next, what is the penalty for operating a clinical laboratory with an expired license? You would find this amusing to know that it is only 1,000 to 5,000 pesos, and the imprisonment for not less than 1 month. So see the reason why Senator Cummings need to run for senator, to legislate a law for us to modify this and modernize our RA 4688, because how much is that? I mean seriously, if Sir Marco wasn't spending so much on Genshin Impact and Raiden I, is not spending so much money on a lot of these on a lot of frivolous things, they could open a laboratory an illegal laboratory every other month. Diba? And they would only have to pay. Raiden Eye, dinagdag ko naman si Raiden Eye. Ano ba? Dinagdag ko naman si Raiden Eye. Tingnan nyo, oh. Tingnan nyo, oh. Kaya kailangan talagang anong tawag doon? Kailangan talagang mag-run for Senate, for a Senate position ni Adrian Cummings. Ang ulit ang slogan natin. Sino nagsabi ng slogan kanina? May nagsabi ng slogan kanina, I do not want to say it. I don't want you guys to say it. I just want you guys to type it in the chat so that we're going to see it. We won't be able to see it on YouTube. Alright, so kung sino yung nakakaalala ng slogan kanina ni Adrian, pakiulit nga kasi I found it really amusing. I just wanted to laugh today. Alright? So, thank you so much for making me laugh, guys. I hope I hope the feeling is mutual, and I hope you found my jokes this lecture amusing. Alright? So next, let's move on to RA 1517. 1517, sorry. RA 1517 is the Blood Bank Law or the National Blood Banking Law of 1956. All right? Blood banking is actually much older. The practice of blood banking is actually much older than the practice of medical technology. Look at it. See, it's 1956. It was actually promulgated in June 16, 1956. Okay, it's the blood banking law of the Philippines. All right, and the purpose for amending this one. What is the purpose for the amendment? It needs to be modernized, and it was amended to be turned into the National Blood Services Act of 1994. All right, the main purpose is to decommercialize the usage, the decommercialized blood and blood products. Okay, because before 1994, it was rampant. There was rampant selling of blood. People would lie. People would lie about their previous donation habits. They would just go to a nearby city that their records are unknown, and they would just donate blood there. And people make it, and there is actually a syndicate before. If you're not familiar, there was a story that there was a syndicate that harvests blood from poor but healthy individuals. Okay, that's the reason why RA 1517 was amended to the National Blood Services Act of 1994 with 7719. All right, so yun yung mga amendments niya. Can it be amended by a Republic Act? Yes. It could be amended by a Republic Act. Remember, RA 5527 was amended several times. If you were listening carefully with me earlier, it was amended several times, not just by a presidential decree, but also with another RA. All right? With another Republic Act. Okay? So what is the purpose of 779? That's what I said. To promote voluntary blood donation and to phase out commercial blood banks. Because the Philippine government found out that people are selling blood, and that's a big no-no. All right, it's a big no-no. Why is it a big no-no? Because remember, in the 90s and in the 80s, in the 80s and the 90s, the spread of the HIV virus is so severe that people would oftentimes spread the disease consciously. I know it sounds evil, but that I can empathize with. I can slightly empathize with what these people are thinking. I mean, you are a person who is an outcast of the society, meaning I'm not saying all people who are infected with HIV are outcasts, but there is a certain level of anger amongst these people. And it is understandable on a psychological standpoint, but not on an ethical standpoint. All right? And we're going to talk about ethics later on. Malapit na. Kaya kailangan natin pag-usapan ng ethics later. All right? So, So what I can gather is that people who oftentimes go to commercial blood banks, and they would look for places where the processing of, or the screening of blood is not as stringent as a larger blood bank, and they would consciously want to infect other people. And that's the reason. That's one of the reasons, mainly to phase out the commercial blood banks, but also to avoid syndication of selling blood. So nagkakaroon tayo ng mga sindikato dati kasi ginagawa yung mga poor but healthy individuals as blood farms. They want to avoid that one. All right? So luckily enough, we have the Red Cross right now who promotes the blood donation, voluntary blood donation, and who is our current president of the Philippine Red Cross. He was under fire quite recently for ano ang slogan, Francis? Bakit? Bakit ganon? Hindi yon. Kay Gordon. Kay Gordon. Ano yung kay Gordon? Naloka ako sa'yo. Alam mo yung inaantok na ako. Ano yan? Oh, yan. Ayan, thank you so much. So, ganun din ang gusto kong mangyari para sa inyo kay Adrian Cummings, ha. Ipaso, ano nga yan? Change is coming. Alright? So, gusto ko yun yung gusto ko parang ganun din yung slogan ninyo. Kasi I am quite sure that he is capable of promoting the practice of clinical laboratory science in the Philippines, so that we're not just considered as what do you call this? As an auxiliary branch, or a supportive department to hospitals and other healthcare facilities. All right? So kayang-kaya mo yan, Adrian. Tinuturuan na kita, ha. Pwede mo akong gawing consultant when you are drafting a specific law or an amendment to RA 5527 or RA 4688, okay? So abangan ko yan, Adrian, na I want to be one of your legal consultants. Legal consultants talaga. Hindi nga ako nakatapos ng abugasya. Pero I think the reason why they keep on teaching this to you guys is that so you guys can get a position in either the local government or on higher office in the future, and maybe this one will influence your future decisions as a leader. Maybe. Okay, we're not saying all of you are, because there are certain people who have the capacity to lead, and not everybody has the capacity to lead. Okay, so let's go. But I strongly believe, I am adamant that in 2035 I will see Adrian's name either as a congressman or as a senator. Kahit nuisance candidate lang yan, I will register to vote. Kahit nuisance candidate lang yan, yung mga ka-level ni Rastaman. Okay? kahit nuisance candidate lang yan. Di ba, Sir Marco? Iboboto mo din siya, Sir Marco? Iboboto niyo din siya, class? Sinong boboto sa kanya? Raise your hand. Dami. Tatlo lang ang supporters mo, Adrian. Ayan na pala, marami. Sige, I will raise my hand also. I'll raise my hand also. Kasi I'm one of the... Oh, di ba pati si Sir Marco nag-raise ang hand. So, ang dami mong supporter, Adrian. Alright? Because I strongly believe, okay? With the proper training and molding, you have the ability to lead. You have the ability to lead. Okay? Anyway, a clinical blood bank is categorized into category A and category B. Okay? Under our blood bank law. Okay? What's our blood bank law again? The amended law is 7719, but it's 1516. Okay? 1517, sorry. Ayan na tayo, paulit-ulit na ako. 1517 and then 7719 amended version. All right. So in the amended version, they categorize the blood bank into category A and category B. Now, a category B is capable of doing the following: health education and counseling, donor screening and selection, provision, storage, issuance, transport, and distribution of blood, of whole blood, and packed red blood cells. Please take note, it was underlined: whole blood and packed red blood cells. What is packed red blood cells? Get your minds out of the gutter. I'm not mispronouncing a dirty word. It's packed. P-A-C-K-E-D. All right? Get your minds out of the gutter, children. All right? Compatibility testing is also done in a category B blood bank, and we're in a category A blood bank. So provision means that there is going to be screening and everything else. Screening inventory and everything else. Storage, where they can store blood banks. There are certain temperatures that you can store a blood bank. I'm not sure if you are the guys that I taught last semester about the storage of blood bank, of blood and blood products, but there is certain storage criteria. There's certain storage criteria that you must be able to achieve in order for you to open a blood bank, category B blood bank. Issuance means that they would be able to allow that they would allow people to deliver to transfuse the blood bank, to issue the blood for therapeutic purposes. Okay, the transport of blood bank and distribution. All right, distribution meaning pwede ba manghiram si blood bank A kay blood bank B? Yes, it is allowed by the law, provided that there is ample documentation of the screening results, as well as the blood bank data and the donor, the anonymous donor, the donor's anonymous screening results. Okay. All right. What about health education and health and counseling? Well, before one becomes a donor, of course, they must be educated by law. They usually health education in the form of donor selection is donor screening and selection is usually in the form of a pamphlet. How it includes how much time, how many times a month, or how many days must you wait before you donate blood, what is your weight, blood, something like that. Counseling can range from finding results that are found in the finding results that are that are remarkable in terms of screening tests, or it could be in a form of counseling within which the blood bank physician or the medical technologist or the nurse in the blood bank can perform. So what other way, aside from delivering the bad news of your screening results, what other forms of counseling can we do? We can do, oh, I'm sorry, you have hemophilia A, you cannot donate. This is the form of you can counsel them on that one. You have a person has a what do you call this, malaria. You need to get treated first. And you must educate them how many months must they wait after treatment for malaria. So those are the forms of counseling. It doesn't necessarily mean that patient tested for hepatitis, HIV, what else do we test? HSV, CFV, that you guys are going to get, that you guys are going to count. That isn't solely focused on HIV, but most of the time counseling can come from different screening results. Okay, so please allow your minds to think outside the box. So maybe this may be asked in your exam questions. All right. Francis Alepio, legalized polygamy. Legalized polygamy daw, sabi mo, nakakaloka ka. Hindi maano ang ikaw Francis ha, hindi maganda ang plataforma mo. Feeling ko talong-talo ka talaga ni Senator Cummings. I think you would be the opposition. You will be part of the opposition, the left wing of an opposition against against Adrian Cummings. Feeling ko after ng senatorial bid, after manalo ni Adrian Cummings ng senatorial bid niya, you will come as a nuisance candidate for his aspirations to become the president in 2045. All right? So he might aspire for 2045. Magugulat na lang tayo. Francis Alipio, ilalabas doon sa mga comment section, isang medtech na kumakalaban sa mga plataforma ni Adrian Cummings. Magnanakaw si Adrian, mga ganong keme. Tapos mga supporters ni Adrian sasabihin naman lugaw si Francis Alipio. Mga ganon yung labanan, no? Mga ganong labanan. Goto, yeah. Sasagot naman ng mga isasagot naman ng mga supporters ni Francis, babalatan din naman niya, babalik, mag-aaway naman sila. Ang isasabihin naman ng mga supporters ni Francis, hindi, may diabetes siya, hindi siya nakakapag-isip ng tama, mga ganon. Kasi nga isa sa mga plataforma ni Adrian, aside from modernizing the Philippine Medical Technologist Act, as well as the 4688, to modernize these two things, is to combat the rampant spread, or rather the rampant rise of diabetes type 2 mellitus. 'Di ba, mga ganon? Kasi ang hilig niyang kumain eh. Kahapon iniinggit ako, Sir Marco, nag-send sa akin ng picture. Nabubwisit ako. Alam nang nagme-maintain ako ng sugar levels. Biglang nag-send sa akin ng ganyang mga keme. Dagal. Alright? Alright? Next thing that you need to remember. What is a dami nating pinag-usapan, category A lang pala 'yon. All right. We're going to move on with category B. A category B blood bank is much larger, of course. It's capable of doing the same things, but with the capability of investigating hemolytic transfusion reactions and incompatible cross-match. So, hemolytic transfusion reactions, baka lumabas sa mga cases ninyo, kaya nilagyan ko ng underline. Alright? They might be asking, a patient suffered from blah 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 blah. Upon investigation of the healthcare committee of the quality control committee, quality assurance committee of Adrian Cummings' hospital, Adrian Cummings Medical Foundation, they found out that the patient is suffered from transfusion related lung injury, TACO. O, di ba, mga ganon? Which of the following laboratories is capable or is legalized by the law to investigate hemolytic transfusion reactions? Mga ganong keme, di ba? Para i-etusin ko talaga kayo, yung mga mahahaba ang mga questions. Staffing requirements for blood banks is usually going to be 2 RMTs headed by a staff RMT headed by a pathologist or a hematologist. So ano ba ang hematologist, guys? Let's not forget that hematologists also study the blood. All right? But they are much more of the therapeutic and the clinical side of things rather than the diagnostic counterpart, which is a pathologist. So a pathologist is a person who has trained in clinical laboratory science or laboratory medicine, and their main purpose is to interpret data and spearhead or lead a laboratory. While a hematologist is a subspecialty of internal medicine, or it could be another one that I'm not sure of, but usually hematology and oncology is the ones that they offer here in the Philippines. Because I have a dear friend of mine who is now a hematology oncology resident or hematology oncology fellow. Fellow pala ang term. Nagsa-subspecialize na siya. Now, another one that we need to have in a laboratory, in a blood bank, is a donor recruitment officer. It could be another doctor, a nurse, or a medical technologist. Grabe naman kayo sa mga PT at saka sa mga sa mga PT at saka sa mga pharmacist, hindi pwedeng magtrabaho sa sa donor recruitment office. Obviously not, because they have other tasks to do. But a nurse, a med tech, and a doctor are people who are capable of recruiting blood donors. Why? Because these people are much more adept in patient contact, patient contact, and they appreciate the value of blood more than the other people in the healthcare industries. It's not that they don't know a lot of stuff about the blood, but it's just that their appreciation of blood and body products is much more inept than what I previously mentioned before. All right? Parang ganito lang yan eh. Kunyari ako ay isang PT or isang rad tech or isang pharmacist or isang psychologist. For example, isa akong ganon. Hindi ako masyadong makakapag-convince ng mga patients na mag-donate ng blood, because that is not my that's not my forte. I'm much more capable in doing other things that can help patients out. Why focus on the blood bank? 'Di ba ganon? Or donor recruitment. Now, the difference in the category of staff planning is as follows. Actually, according to the law, a category A has 4 RMTs, one in the afternoon, morning, and one who is off. They're going to be shifting. All right? They're going to be shifting. A category B needs to have at least 5 RMTs. All right? That is the reason why I actually didn't realize it. That's the reason why there's only 4 RMTs at night shift in the Philippines. When I was working in the Philippines at night shift. Kaya pala hindi nila inaalis yung isa naming staff na hindi nagtatrabaho noon. Kaya pala lagi siyang naka-duty, pero hindi siya nagtatrabaho noon. Kaya pala nagtataka ako noon, ba't parang 3 lang kami laging nagtatrabaho? Yung blood banker namin, tapos kaming dalawa ng mga medtech na kumukuha ng blood sa kung saan-saan. Kaya sabi ko, kaya pala ganon. So, yon. Category kasi kami? Category 5 kasi kami. So, apat kami, 3 kaming nagtatrabaho, yung dalawa natutulog lang. So, yon. Pag category 5, 2 sa umaga, tag-isa ang nag-shifting. Alright? So, understood? These are the category. These are the staffing. This is the staffing plan for category A and category B blood bank. All right? Under our law. Now, we need to remember another administrative order. Ano ba yan, sir? Ba't lagi na lang may mga administrative order? Unfortunately, kailangan nating alalahanin. All right? There are rules and regulations for governing blood services under the BSF. All right? Blood service facilities, also known as blood service facilities. These are rules and regulations. So the title of AO 2008-0058 is also known as the rules and regulations governing blood services and blood service facilities. All right, that is 5. That has been promulgated. The date of the promulgation is 2008, 5th of the 2nd of May. Alright? So, tandaan ng mga dates. Important yan sa atin. Alright? The types of blood banks have been differentiated because of this particular administrative order. We have now, based on ownership, a blood bank could be a government or a private institution. Alright? It could be based on a institutional character as well. Hospital-based or non-hospital-based. Philippine National Red Cross is an example of that one. Actually, here in Saudi Arabia, we have what you call the Red Crescent naman. Kasi walang cross sa kanila. They find it offensive to have crosses there. So we have crescent only, like the one they have in Ramadan, during the holy months of Ramadan. So they have only the crescent. Okay? So just for your information lang, guys. All right? So service capability. So based on service capability, ito yung actually kailangan ninyong tandaan. A blood station is capable of storing whole blood only. So they're basically the collection. They basically after collecting the blood, they're the ones who will facilitate the storage and inventory of blood products. So a blood station lang ganon. Can a blood station be a blood collection unit, a BCU? Yes, but it has to be indicated that they are capable of doing 2 things. All right. So blood collection unit, or a BCU. Another reason why, another example of that one is the Philippine National Red Cross. Okay. We have a blood bank, an actual blood bank capable of blood typing, cross matching, and Coombs testing. All right. Bakit sinama ang Coombs testing? Because one of the importance of a blood bank is that one of the main reasons of other than cross matching blood is we want in the blood bank a specific job for blood bankers is to detect hemolytic transfusion reactions associated to hydrops fetalis. Alright? What is hydrops fetalis pa, guys? Yung nasa loob pa lang si baby, patay na siya. Okay? So, nasa loob pa lang ng womb si baby. So, Coombs test is one of the tests that can prevent the hemolytic disease of newborn and fetus. Alright? So, Coombs test. What specific Coombs test? Blood bank nyo na lang. Kasi baka mamaya sabihin inaagawan ko ng trabaho yung blood banking lecturer nyo. Alright? Next. A blood center is is responsible for donor selection and collection of blood. So, blood center. Donation and selection of blood. Donor selection and collection of blood. So, pag pinag-combine, pwede mo silang gamitin, pwede mo pag-combine yung dalawa, and they could be a blood center or a blood center or a blood collection unit plus a blood station. They could be converted and formed, and they could be combined and form a blood center. Their main importance is to collect and to select the donors. All right? So yan yung isa sa mga probable questions na lumabas sa exam ninyo. Now, let's talk about RA 8504. This is something that is close to my heart because as a member of the rainbow community, as a member of the rainbow community, it is associated with the Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 1998. I have a story for you guys if you would be willing to listen and give me a couple of minutes to tell you my story. Did you know that in the Philippines, starting when the internet began to explode in our country or became popularized in our country, the statistical data for the number of people who got infected with HIV skyrocketed, and actually that was within the years 2000. Okay, it became a health issue actually before 1998. Okay, before 1998 it was already a healthcare issue all over the world. But the law was only passed in 1998, okay? During the time of Fidel V. Ramos. Alright? Fidel V. Ramos pa yan. We'll Google it later. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody search in Google and tell me if it's Fidel V. Ramos. I think it's Joseph Estrada na, but I'm not sure. But let's continue on. So it's very close to my heart. Now, one of the reasons why I support sex education in younger people is that sex education in younger pupils, lower than high school, probably before 4th grade, is the fact that because of the popularity of social media, okay, the spread of the virus has become much more prominent because there's a lot of apps right now. We have Grindr, we have what else? We have Grindr, we have Planet Romeo. I'm not Hoy, baka mamaya sabihin nyo isa ako dun sa mga purveyors ng mga ganon. Baka mamaya sabihin niyo baka sabihin nyo isa ako sa mga purveyors ng mga na yun. It's banned here in Saudi Arabia, by the way, guys. Okay? It's banned here. Okay? I am much more of a traditionalist. Okay? I like to meet the person before actually doing some sort of whatever it is. And it's important in our discussion because it will be part of our debate later. Hence the reason why I want you guys to listen to this particular, for our debaters to have an idea. The AIDS pandemic is so rampant that when I graduated, a friend of mine who works in San Lazaro Hospital, where the confirmation or the Western blot testing is done, would often say to me, "Besh, napagod ako." Sabi ko, bakit, Besh? Kasi, alam nyo yung isang rack na 100 tubes ang laman. Imagine, wait. Ano ba magandang example para sa mga student? Do you guys know, pagka bumili kayo ng tube saan ba kayo namimili ng tube nyo, ng mga tubes nyo, pagka nag-experiment kayo dati? Sa Bambang? So, alam mo yung puti na styrofoam, yung styrofoam na may laman na 100 test na tubes? Bumibili ba kayo ng ganon? Pinaghati-hatian nyo yun dati? So, di ba 100 tubes ang laman nun? Red top usually ang binibili namin noon nung nagpa-practice kami ng mga clinical chemistry. Alam nyo ba na because of that, because I was so disheartened by when I graduated, I really wanted to work in the SACL, but unfortunately I did not get an acceptance letter from them, and I don't also want to travel because girl, nakaka-stress kaya mag-travel from Project 8 Quezon City to Caloocan, sasakay ka ng bus every day. Kaya sabi ko, ayoko na lang magtrabaho sa SACL, nakakatakot. I really wanted to go there because I wanted to know how I was the academic curiosity to do Western blot testing actually urged me to become an AIDS prevention advocate. Okay? One of the things that I would often advise my students, whether or not the topic is microbiology, the topic is blood bank, hematology, or whatever, or even here, I think this is the perfect platform for that one, is that alam nyo yung 100 na yon, tinetest yun ng friend ko, napapagod siya kasi kailangan niyang i-rerun ulit kasi dalawa lang doon ang negative. Would you believe it that dalawa lang doon ang negative for HIV? Okay? So out of 100, 98 people would test positive. And that is on a daily basis. Imagine that one. All right? So if there is something that you will learn from this lecture, aside from Adrian's bid to become a senator, is that if you are socially active, I would like to say socially active na lang. If you are socially active, please try your best to use protection because that's the best way to prevent it. And if you have access to PrEP, please use it because this is going to help you. Now, it doesn't mean it's just for the gays out there, all right? Doesn't mean it's just for the gays out there. It can be transmitted to PrEP is I will help you guys out what the PrEP is. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. I will send it here in the chat box. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's actually a set of drugs that you're going to be able to take that will make your serum, or maybe your blood. Let's just say the blood. I'll simplify it for you guys because the mechanisms is too complicated for a subject matter that focuses on medtech laws. So basically, what it does is it makes an HIV positive person become undetectable and also untransmittable. Makes his body undetectable and untransmittable for the virus. And if the person is untransmittable, the patient will be able to enjoy the love that is oftentimes going to be talked about in many arguments about same-sex relationships. Okay? So yun lang. Protection or PrEP, whatever you want to use. I cannot stop you. I actually support people who love to express their love. I'm very supportive of people. I'm not really a prude when it comes to people trying to talk about their sexual activities. I would actually, oh girl, you go get that blank. All right? Ganun ako actually with my friends. But I always remind them to stay safe. Diba? All right? So please guys, ha. Okay. So, tapos na yung speech ko about AIDS prevention and blah blah blah. Let's talk about the purpose of RA 8404. Alright? RA 8504. Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act of 1998. promulgated in February 13. See, before Valentine's Day of 1998. Diba? Before Valentine's Day siya. Kaya natatama lang siya sa natatama lang siya sa sa topic na to because it's before the season, the day of love, the day of love na lang, Valentine's Day na lang, or 'di ba guys? All right, so what is the purpose of RA 4.5? So it has 52 sections. Okay, we're not going to discuss all of them because it's going to cause a headache, and usually it's not asked in the board exams. Actually, the only recall question that I noticed amongst the other ones is how many sections there is in the National AIDS Prevention Act. The Philippine AIDS Prevention and Control Act is how many sections there is. There's 52. All right? Do not be confused. Do not be confused with 32 ha. 52 kapag ka National AIDS Prevention Act. Now, the main purpose is the nationwide AIDS education and information program. Okay? AIDS education and information program. All right? So next, we have to talk about the National AIDS Council, the PNAC. Usually it's abbreviated as PNAC. All right? The National AIDS Council is comprised of 26 members. And the permanent chair is always the DOH secretary. So the DOH secretary today is who? The DOH secretary. Anybody? Sino? All right. Regardless of the controversies, we will always support our department head chair because we are people who want to what? We want to have health for everybody. Okay, our main purpose, regardless of the visions and the controversies associated with Francisco Duque, I believe that people working under him are doing the best they can. Just so happens that the whole thing or the whole debacle is marred with a lot of corruption. All right, so we will always support our DOH secretary, whatever controversy may be with him, because he is not a political entity but rather a health advocate. Okay, so there's 26 members in the National AIDS Council, and it is responsible for promulgating the provision or responsible for the provision of 8504. It is either through helping. It's either through community health outreach programs, free health, free testing, free screening and confirmation of HIV, and statistical analysis. Out of the 52 sections, these things that I mentioned are included in the whole Republic Act. Okay, and I'm not going to fry your brains with it. Okay, hindi naman ako. I'm not that kind of monster. Kayo naman. Kayo naman. Problema na nga kayo sa histopathology, tapos dadagdagan ko pa kayo ng another 52 sections. Over naman kayo, sir. Wag naman ganun sana, 'di ba? So 26 members lang ang gusto ko maalala ninyo, at saka ang permanent chair nito is always the DOH secretary. Now, who monitors the magnitude of HIV infections in the Philippines? Under RA 8504, the AIDS Watch organization is the one that is the government affiliated organization that monitors the magnitude of HIV infections. Yung mga data na nakikita ninyo sa TV, sila yon yung nagko-collect ng data ng mga ganon. All right? So there's always a person assigned to collect the biostatistical data. All right? So based on the proponents of 8504, who are the people whom HIV reports are given to, this is going to be an important question for you guys, because there might be a case study there that blah 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 blah. He gave the result to blank. Which of the following has been violated under the provisions of 8504? Diba? Mga ganon. Sometimes hindi ko pa sasabihin kung anong RA. Sometimes hindi ko pa sasabihin kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng RA 8504. So I need you guys to understand the value of memorizing and analyzing the question. Baka mamayang ilagay ko lang under 8R45 what has been violated by this specific individual. Mga ganun. Alright? So, sino ang pwedeng makareceive ng HIV reports? Positive or negative, the patient who submitted himself to the test is the person who can get that result. But if the patient is a minor, it's either parent. So, it's a mother or the father only. The legal guardian of an orphan or an insane person can also be one to receive the results, or the person who works in the in the what kind of branch of government? Legislative, executive, or judiciary? Saan nakabilong si Supreme Court Justice at saka si Justice of the Court of Appeals? Judiciary. Alright? So, 'di ba? Napaka-holistic ng approach ko sa lecture natin ngayon. Diniscuss ko ang every branch of government that we have here in the Philippines, that I hope somebody might be inspired to take up a higher office in the Philippines next time, and maybe you can change the world. You can change the state of healthcare in our country. Malay nyo, 'di ba? You don't need to be a physician, you just need to have the drive to be able to do that. Now next, the Newborn Screening Act of the Philippines. We have the Newborn Screening Act. Another thing that you need to remember is the Newborn Screening Act. It was promulgated in April 7th, 2004. Quite recent lang din siya. I was still in high school by that time, I think. Elementary pa rin pala. Sorry, elementary. I was still in grade, I think I was in grade 4. Tanda ko na, no, guys. siguro si Raiden ay pseudonym lang niya yun, hindi talaga siya Arcon. Probably he's a spermatid back then. Or a copy or a clone of or just a stem cell pa lang, no? No, Raiden ay nawala ata siya. Nasa si Raiden ay? Bakit wala siya? Ay, nandiyan naman. Hindi nagre-react. Hindi siya nagre-react ngayon. Baka na-hurt siguro sa sinabi ko kanina. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Okay. So, the Newborn Screening Act of the Philippines. The Newborn Screening Act of 2004. Alright? So, it's RA 9288. Alright? It's RA 9288. So, there are still provisions in here. I'm not going to ask you to memorize all of it. I'm just going to provide you with some questions. I'm going to provide you with some questions that are routinely asked in the board exam. Commonly asked questions in the board exam. Alright? Based on RA 9288, newborn screening should be done 24 hours after birth within 3 days. Okay? You may file a case against the physician or whomever is responsible for doing the newborn screening. If your baby died, you can file a case if a baby died due to complications associated with the Newborn Screening Act. So for example, your baby was normal, but unfortunately the cleaning products in the neonatal in the nursery is an oxidizer. The patient is what is the ano bang oxidizer yung patient na yan? Magandang phenylketonuria, no? Phenylketonuria is too much. Magandang example. Nag-isip ako ng sakit na pwedeng mangyari kay baby kapag For example, nategi si baby kasi hindi siya na newborn screen. G6PD deficiency, yun. Yeah, G6PD deficiency. So for example, yung cleaner, hindi naman niya alam na may G6PD deficiency si baby, and 3 days na yung bata. 3 days na yung bata sa ano tawag doon? Sa hospital or sa nursery, hindi man lang nila na-screen para nalaman sana nila. Ibig sabihin sana na-prevent yung So, pwede mong kasuhan ng hospital ng ganun for neglect. Kasi dapat done within 24 hours after birth, within 3 days. So, paano kung si cleaner ba ang pwedeng maging implicate? Yes. Pwede siya ma-implicate as an associate. Okay? Pwede siya ma-implicate as an associate. Okay? So, talagang tinuturuan ko kayo mag-abugas siya, no? So, ganun yung mga kaso na pwede nating ma-encounter sa exam ninyo, guys. So, please be mindful of that one. Alright? Sa NICU, within 7 days. Kasi these are children that require incubation, ultraviolet ray exposure therapy. So, we don't want to we also don't want these kids to lose blood, or these newborns to lose blood. Okay? So, every single drop of blood is precious to them. So, we just want them to be stable for a while, and then allow them to just get on a stable level. That's it. That's the reason why it's on 7. The reason why it's on 7 days. That's the reason why the limit is within 7 days. Okay? So, clear kung how many days ang newborn screening, are hours, niya. Okay? Cool beans. We can continue next. The genetic disorders that according to the Newborn Screening Act that should be tested. This is not enough actually, but it is the most common type of tests. This is not enough actually. Here in Saudi Arabia, it's 1 page. It's 1 page kasi dito meron sila yung consanguinity. Kasi here common yung arranged marriage, and one of the drawbacks of arranged marriage is genetic disorders, kasi mamaya close relatives pala yung patients, kaya mahaba yung listahan sa kanila. Sa atin dito parang itong 6 lang na to. Itong 5 lang na to. So hopefully hindi na siya madagdagan. Itong lang na to. Pinaka-common cause of death for children, if not screened, is actually G6PD deficiency and phenylketonuria. Okay? All right? Clear? So these are the tests that you will monitor, that is monitored in the Newborn Screening Act. Please don't forget them. Okay? Maybe this will be asked in the board exam. All right? So I'm going to send you a couple of topics that is commonly asked in the board examinations. All right? Commonly asked questions. What is the reason why board examinations may be postponed? Can somebody give me a reason why the board exam for 2020 and 2021 was postponed? Adrian, tagal magsalita. Ha? Very good. All right? So pandemic is one, or an epidemic, or a public calamities where 25% of the examiners will be absent, okay, and will not be able to do their job. Okay, set A and B questions are the same question but different arrangements. All right. Another thing that you need to remember in the board exam, actually parehas lang ang laman ng content ng exam, pinagbago-bago lang nila just to avoid the easy way out cheating. All right. This is if a pathologist is what's this? Name, citizenship, domicile, head, scope, nature of the work undertaken. Mamaya na yan. If a pathologist is unable, a physician may be qualified to perform the duties of the laboratory provided that he or she is trained, okay, in laboratory medicine for 3 months with QC, laboratory medicine, and laboratory management. So pwede ang doktor. And let's be honest, the best pre-med is of course medical technology, and I know I'm sounding biased. Okay? All right? So yeah. So pwede bang mag-practice, pwede bang maging head ng laboratory ang isang general physician na ang kanyang graduation, ang kanyang pre-med is Bachelor's of Science in Medical Technology? Yes. Yes, he can. Because why? Under the provisions of the law of RA 4688, he should be the one who will be able to train, the one who is trained within 3 months or after 3 months of training. Usually it's a whole year for you guys, right? Internship is 12 months. Training and education is enough. Okay? So for example, gusto niyo maging head ng laboratory and there's no one around to be the head of the laboratory, you can be the head of the laboratory if you want. You just need to provide certifications or proof that you are a medtech. So for example, mamimili tayo ng isang kaklase niyo ulit. For example, si Cherise Lacero, si Dr. Cherise Lacero, MD, or Cherise Lacero, MD, graduated in 2023, graduate na siya na. Ano, kiniklaim ko na ha, Cherise. Kiniklaim ko na makakapag-board exam ka by 2023 March. So, papasok ka ng med school, and then 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027 or 2028, hindi natin sure kasi medyo foggy ang future eh. Hindi ko makita sa bolang kristal ko eh. Siguro 2024, 2025, magiging physician ka na. So, magiging physician ka na within 2025 or 2026. Will you be allowed to practice? Would you be allowed to head the laboratory if there's no one available? Yes, of course. Okay? So, kiniklaim ko na din, pero medyo foggy yung nasa bolang kristal ko, hindi ko makita eh. I cannot psychically determine or predetermine your medical career. But I can claim that if you studied today, every day of the week, you look at the videos and you study the laws of medical technology, you will pass the exam. But the medicine one, medyo foggy for me. Hindi ko makita sa bolang kristal ko. Alright? What is the penalty for dispensing and transfusing and failing to dispose HIV contaminated blood? 10 years. Alright? So, sir, bakit ganito? Kakaiba naman ang imprisonment. But kanina parang napaka-light lang ng mga napaka-light lang ng punishment dun sa mga penal. Penal, ha? Hindi penile. Penal. Alright? Get your minds out of the gutter, children. Alright? Bakit? Kasi, di ba, remember, meron tayong tinatawag na National Blood Services Act or the modernization, yung 7718, di ba? Remember 7718? It was an updated version in 1994. They amended it and they changed the penal provisions into 10 from 1 year or not more than a year, and they said 10 years. All right? So 10 years na siya. Okay? Next. What is done to HIV reactive samples after screening? Well, it is confirmed in San Lazaro Hospital. All right? San Lazaro Hospital. Now, the renewal of an empty license for recent addition and the renewal of an recent addition include the collection of 60 CPE units. Unit lang siya, walang E. Medyo naloloka na ang aking secretary talaga. Kala ko kanina lang yon. Hanggang dito pala sa dulo. Inantok na siguro siya. All right? So, the renewal of an empty license. In recent times, we need 60 CPE units. Please confirm this to me because last time I came back to the Philippines, it was 30. Nadoble na ba, Sir Marco? I'm not sure kung ano. But the last time I came back to the Philippines, it was at 30. So please confirm kung 30 units siya mamaya. Paki-inform na lang kung 30 pa rin ba or 60. Pero kasi yun yung nakalagay dun sa prc.gov. Pero kasi yung iba kong friends, 60 CPE units ang kailangan. So I'm not really sure. So nilagay ko na lang 60 para madami. Alright? And don't worry, hindi ko siya itatanong sa board exam kasi ang mga board exam ninyo medyo oldie but goodie. Medyo oldie but goodie yung mga questions. Alright? Define contract tracing. Ayan, napakaganda ng question ko. It's very common today. It's a very popular term today. Define contract tracing. Can somebody define contract tracing for me? Hello? Anybody? Alam ko merong mga nagtatrabaho dito as contact tracers. What is contact tracing? Anybody? Am I still here? Is anybody still listening? Hello? Ayan, akala ko, kinabahan ako na Adrian, akala ko na disconnect ako. Katulad last time nagle-lecture ako sa sa kabilang section. Ngayon ako nang ngaw for like 30 minutes. Disconnected na pala ako. Alright. So, Noreen Fortunato, can you define contact tracing for me? Sige, kahit Tagalog. Contact tracing from the name itself, 'di ba? I will use sexually transmitted diseases as an example. Finding and counseling the sexual partner or people who are involved in a particular disease. Okay, I just used STDs as an example here. Finding and counseling is something that So you are correct. according ika nga ni Chris Aquino sa Game Ka Na Ba, correct! Alright? Hindi, mas maarte pa pala. Correct! Ganun pala. Alright? So, HIV testing whereby the individual being tested does not reveal his or her true identity. This is anonymous testing. Hence the term does not reveal his or her true identity. Anonymous testing. Can we do this? Yes, of course. That's actually one of the guidelines followed by the Philippine National Red Cross. They would oftentimes test patient samples based on the numbers attached or allocated or assigned to a specific blood bag. Okay? So anonymous testing is usually done. Providing high-risk reduction information and emotional support to a person who submitted to HIV testing is termed simply as post-test counseling. It could be either knowing what the results are or knowing the implications of what a positive test or a negative test would be. It could be a form of counseling. All right? Can medtechs do this? Of course, we can do that because we're the ones who test it. We're the ones who test it. We're the ones who see the results also, and we know the ins and outs of the disease per se. All right, so we are capable of counseling them, except of course with the relation of therapeutics. We don't usually care that much about therapeutics, but more so of the spread of health education in terms of the spreading of the disease, the types of intervention a person can get, and basically emotional support to a person. All right. So if you are a person who can empathize with individuals who test positive for HIV, you might be a candidate for a good post-test counseling position, di ba? Right? Tama ba? Ang mag-raise ng hand, pwedeng ma-hire as a post-test counselor for HIV in San Lazaro Hospital. Can you guys raise your hand? Kasi ibig sabihin pumasa na kayo ng PRC ni board exams ninyo. Ayan, nagsitaasan sila ng kamay, oh. Oh, kailangan pala muna sinisindak ko muna eh. 'Di ba, Mayra? Kailangan sinisindak ko muna kayo, no? Kini-claim ko na para sa inyo. Kailangan niyo lang gawin. You just need to do it yourself. All right? You just need to put in the effort. Hindi pwedeng si Sir Marco lang or si Miss Matulak Miss Matulak ang gagawa ng lahat. Okay? Ibigay niyo na. Yun nga actually ang ginagawa ng mga professors din sa inyo. Ibigay niyo na. 'Di ba ganun? Not a very good singer like Adrian, but whatever. All right? Anyway, let's move on. Couple more slides. Persons frequently involving certain activities which is a risk of transmitting and acquiring HIV. These are high risk behaviors. Okay, high risk behavior. Sexually active. What else? Sexually active. Sexually promiscuous. A sex worker. These are high risk. These are people who are high risk of acquiring the disease. Okay. Next. Maximum number of drug testing labs a physician can handle. They can handle 10. That's why when I was in college, I wanted to be a pathologist. I wanted to go to medicine and become a pathologist because, oh my gosh, I just need 10. I can handle 10 and they will pay me just to sign the results. Yun yung motivation ko dati, the monetary compensation. But unfortunately, things change, and I happen to love the profession. So I didn't pursue medicine, and here I am in front of you speaking about medtech laws. Possible clients for mandatory drug testing. So mandatory ha. Hindi sila pwedeng tumanggi. Patients who are applicants for driver's license, firearms license, military, police, and law enforcing agencies. Okay? Patient with criminal offense, and candidates for public service. They must be able to present a negative drug test result. Otherwise, they will be denied of certain privileges. They will be denied the candidacy. They would be denied a seat for the candidacy. They would be implicated of a crime. What kind of offense will they be able to commit? What? Disruption of justice, right? Because if you are a criminal and you do not want to submit your urine for drug testing, then that means you're hiding something. And lawyers can detect that, and they can use that against you as evidence against you, right? Disruption of the justice. All right, police, law enforcement agencies, and military personnel, they are people who must undergo these things. Firearms and driver's license, of course, self-explanatory. Sino nga ba namang tao ang bibigyan mo ng firearms license na obviously high lagi, 'di ba? All right? For safety purposes of the public. Possible clients for random drug testing. Ito yung hindi announced. Pwedeng gawin, pwedeng hindi gawin. Students from secondary to tertiary schools. So what do we mean by secondary and tertiary levels? High school students and college students. Okay? Office employees of public offices, domestic or overseas. Okay? So before I came here to the Middle East, specifically here in Saudi Arabia, I had to undergo drug testing. Okay, when I came to the hospital, or my port of entry here, I submitted also my urine for drug testing, especially here in my hospital. It's a military institution. They would oftentimes ask us to submit samples for drug testing. Now, what's the difference for drug test analysts here in the Middle East? Well, unlike there in the Philippines, you have to be certified as a drug test analyst. Here, it is just a what you call this? It is an assigned position. All right, you will be trained. By the ins and outs of the drug testing lab here in our laboratory, and usually it's the military hospitals here who do drug testing. So I'm lucky enough to be able to do this. Actually, they're very strict here. They don't allow me to go inside the drug testing laboratory. If I weren't the quality coordinator and the quality management officer, I would not have been allowed to go there. But because of certain privileges of additional work privileges, I was allowed to do so because I do testing, precision testing and method validation for the new machine that we had there a couple of months ago. So it's very chill there. The lab techs and the lab specialists there would just sit there and just wait for samples. That's their duty. They get paid differently as opposed to people who work in the general laboratory area. Okay? So, important details for chain of custody. What are the important details? Maybe this will be asked in your exam, maybe not. But this again is included, especially in a previous question in the results. The question was asked, which of the following information is not pertinent for the chain of custody data, or the chain of custody data? The the individual who had the chain of the information, they would give all of this, and on letter E, none of the above or some other random option. All right, so please be mindful of the questions that I pose to you, and the type of questions that you might encounter in my exam as well as in the board exam. Actually, I would consider my exam to be much more harder than the board exam because I am actually tailoring it to make it look like a bar exam question. Okay? So be careful. All right? So validity of drug test results is 1 year. All right? And that is the end of our lecture for medtech laws. Now our next topic is about bioethics. And this is going to take up the rest of our time. If you are group Alipio, please be mindful that you are required to open your camera, okay, during the debate. Okay? All right, so if you are team Cummings, all right, if you are team Cummings, you are also required to to open your camera. Whoever your speaker is, you are also required to open your camera for the debate. Should I repeat the rules again? Should I repeat the rules again? All right. So the rules are like this. You will be given a topic. You will be given a topic, okay? And each topic you will state your introduction. All right? State your introduction. I'll give you an example later. All right? I'll give you an example later how to answer the question, either pros or cons, so that you will be able to, and this should be delivered in English. It could be delivered in Taglish, but never in full Tagalog. Why? Because your answers in the exam, your questions in the exam will be in full English. All right? So you could say it in Taglish, whatever, but it should not be purely Tagalog. Okay? All right? Next rules of the debate. Next rules of the debate. Each participant must present an introductory statement to their stand. They have to state the reason for their stand. If they wish so to do an example, if there is enough time, they can do so. They need to present data. All right? You are not allowed to attack the personnel on the other team. This is considered as an ad hominem infarction, and it will cost you 1 point. All right? What? Because we are doing a debate, a formal debate. Okay? This is actually how a debate will be. And you will get an infarction. And so you won't cry. Napaka-demonyo ni Francis. But I love the shadiness. Alright? Alright? And we want to avoid libel cases, because this will be posted in our YouTube channel, in my YouTube channel, of course. Alam